Hello, everyone. Eric from Helps, law firm for seniors and disabled persons. Welcome to our YouTube channel today, Thursday, February 18th, 2026. Good to have you here. Um, my name's Eric. I've been an attorney for 48 years, hard to believe. And the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm. What we do is represent seniors and disabled persons who have debt they can't afford to pay. Our most important message to you, if you're a senior getting Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits, and if you're strapped with debt and you don't pay the debt, creditors can't take your money. It's safe. Even if you get sued and they get a judgment. Federal rule put in effect in 2012 instructs your banks to automatically protect twice the amount of your federal benefit that's deposited in your account, twice the amount you get each month, regardless of what other funds are in there or where they came from. Okay? So your income's protected. It's available for your needs. Law also provides there's a law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, passed in 1978. It provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters anymore. They have to deal with the attorney. And that's what Helps does. People find out about us, and then we send what's called a cease and desist letter to your creditors to whom you owe money, the ones you can't pay or don't want to pay, and they have to deal with us and not you. Okay? So if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. I'll address them there, and then I go to other things to talk about. But if you're saddled with debt and you're a senior, we don't want you to worry. You can always call and talk to Helps. So Bill says, Eric, I have my military pension split, having $1,000 going to one bank and another $2.5 going to another. Is that okay? I assume they're both protected. Yeah, they are. As long as the bank can identify it as coming from the military. Okay? So that would mean 1,000, 2,000 in one bank would be protected, and 2,000 in the other bank would be protected, assuming you get 1,000 in one bank and 1,000 to another bank. Okay. You're right. There's a code on the account. Franklin asks, I'm being sued for $5,000 from Citibank. Can they touch my finance car? It was a different bank. Oh, no, they can't touch your car. No, even if your car is free and clear. Okay. States have what are called exemption laws, and they vary from state to state. And one exemption law will protect a certain amount of equity in a car. Okay, it could be 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, depend on the state. But even if you have a car, that's equity. That equity is if you owe a certain amount of money and it's worth something more than that, it's the difference. But if you have a car you owe 25,000 on, it may only be worth 20 and you don't have any equity in the car. But even if you have equity, that amount is protected under the state exemption laws. But even if you have equity in a car, over and above the exemption for the state where you live, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after that car. They just simply don't do it. Can I call Helps to get help on where to find that 982 form? I'll tell you right now where to find it. Just Google IRS Form 982. And you'll be able to print it out. Okay. Citibank sued me 2 years ago and won. I haven't heard any more from them since then. Well, that's pretty typical. Okay. A lot of Helps clients, some Helps clients get sued. It's not unusual. They get a judgment. When one of our clients gets sued, we send a letter to the attorney who sued you, and we let the attorney know that your income is protected and you're not going to pay the debt. And usually that's just the end of it. Okay. Once in a while, depending on the state, they might ask for some follow-up paperwork. And you can always call Helps if you have a question about your particular situation. Don't want you to worry. Okay? So this person writes in and they said, anything will help. Thanks in advance. Well, the name of our law firm is HELPS, which stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. We can't put more money in your pocket, but what we can do is tell you what debt you don't have to pay so that you'll have money for the things that you need. Okay? Person contacts us, they say, I need help. I only receive Social Security income, and while I try to keep up with my debt, I am unable to. I have about $50,000 in unsecured debt that I stopped paying about a year ago. I also have an income tax debt that I must pay monthly with a balance of about $3,000. Not necessarily. Let's go on. I'll talk about that in a second. I have 2 credit cards accounts about $7,000 that I try to keep current, so I have some credit, but they remain close to the max balance. I've received notice of a lawsuit, civil summons for date April 15, 26 for one of my creditors in the amount of $20,650. I expect more forthcoming from other creditors. They go on to say I'm single, 70 years of age. I receive $3,000 per month from Social Security. I have no other income. I live alone. I own my car, which is my only transportation, a 2013 Dodge valued at about $6,000. There's no public transportation in my town. I have no other assets or savings. And then he lists his apartment is 1550, and he lists utilities, rental insurance, car insurance, Medicare. That leaves me approximately $617 per month for gasoline, auto maintenance, prescriptions, food, and necessities. I receive at least 12 daily calls from creditors. I allow them to go to voicemail. I have not directly spoken with a creditor. What suggestion do you have? Is there a program I can join with Helps? I would like to become a Helps client. Finally, I'm being priced out of my apartment. I'm concerned about not being able to get approved for a cheaper apartment, which is with such bad credit. What do you suggest? Should I try to find employment, but it will make my situation worse? So let's talk about this. Okay, first off, he says he's got a balance in taxes of $3,000. His only income is Social Security. Okay, if your only income is Social Security, you probably could stop paying those taxes. Now, if you want to, you can. I don't discourage people from paying their taxes, but IRS is probably, if your only income is Social Security, the IRS is probably not going to do anything about it. The worst the IRS can do is offset 15% of your Social Security to pay taxes. But I don't see them ever doing that with persons uh, lately that are getting Social Security. The computer lets them know that's your only income, and you're with your other expenses. If they were to do anything, if they were going to do that, they'd have to give you like 60-day notice of intent to offset 15% of your Social Security, which would give you time to contact the IRS and apply for what's called currently not collectible status, so you wouldn't have to pay the IRS. So that will save you some money there. Now, you've got 2 credit cards with $7,000 you're trying to keep current, but they're maxed out. You don't really need to pay those anymore. I mean, you could, but you don't need to. You've been sued for $20,000, $21,000 it looks like. Um, if you do nothing, they're going to get a judgment. You owe the money. They're going to get a judgment anyway. They can't touch your Social Security, and your bank account is protected. You get $3,000 a month in Social Security. That's $6,000 is protected in your bank account. Now you've got a car that's valued about $6,000. I don't know the state that this person lives in, but a lot of states will protect that amount of equity in a car, or even more, or even if it's less. Or not, a creditor that gets a judgment isn't going to go after your car. Okay, so that's going to free up a lot of money. You may be able to save some money on your car. You may be able to save some car insurance. I get 12 calls a day for creditors. When you enroll in Helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. You're not going to have to go to court. Okay. Now, as far as trying a cheaper apartment, first off, if you don't have to pay the taxes and all these other debt and the $7,000, you may be able to afford where you live, and it gives you more time to find another apartment. Now, as far as your credit in an apartment, we have a letter, we call it a landlord letter, that we'll give to any attorney, any client, or even a non-client, that explains to a prospective landlord that your Social Security is protected, that even though you may have negative entries on your credit, all that money is going to be available to pay your rent. Okay? Eric, Miss HX, all my income is tax exempt from my job. Still file that 982 form with taxes. Not sure why you need to file taxes if you don't have any income to file tax return on. Okay? We have you can call helps, and we've got an email that talks about Form 982 and a 1099-C. But if you're not required to file, pay any taxes, or you shouldn't need to worry about filing 982. You file that with a tax return that you're required to file. Uh, okay, a lot of seniors still work, and if you don't have any taxes taken out of your income, and it's under a certain amount, then you're not required to file tax returns, and that's probably close to $15,000 on top of your Social Security. So, person contacts us from Michigan. My husband has just become disabled at 68 years. Um, I have many credit cards, and they're overwhelming us with new additional medical bills. I'm not behind at the present time. So, 68-year-old husband is 68 years old. I'm assuming that your only income is retirement or Social Security, and the person says they have credit cards that are overwhelming us, and they've got additional medical bills. Well, you can stop paying the credit card bills. As far as the medical bills, I mean, you can pay towards them if you want. Um, Most of the medical costs are going to be probably covered under Medicare. And if it's your doctor you use regularly, you could just pay them a token amount each month if you needed to. But you'll be fine. You can stop paying the debt. So if we have 5 people that call helps, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued, and maybe 3 or 4 out of the 5 they're behind and creditors are harassing, and then maybe 1 out of 5 is completely current on everything. It doesn't matter where you are. Even if you're current, you don't have to be behind on the debt to enroll with helps. You can be completely current. So Jay Dunn asked, just received a 1099-C from the debt. How does that work? Well, okay. We talk about 1099-Cs a lot. Okay, a 1099-C it's called 1099 cancellation of debt. It means that a creditor to whom you owe money, they say that you haven't paid them, therefore they are required to file this notice with the IRS if you owe them more than $600. And what it does, it tells the IRS that you didn't pay this debt, and that debt that you didn't pay should be ascribed to you as income upon which you would need to pay taxes. Okay. Um, However, if you don't file tax returns, um, not required to file tax returns, you really don't need to worry about a 1099-C. But let's say you are required to file tax returns. Um, if if your debt exceeds your assets, like let's say you have 50,000 in debt, and you're renting where you live, and you just got some furniture and an old car, and you have 10,000 in assets, you're insolvent, which means your debt exceeds your assets. You could file what's called a Form 982 with your tax return if you're required to file tax returns. Once again, if you're not required to file tax returns, I wouldn't worry about a 1099-C. We got videos on our website that talk about that, but no, you shouldn't need to worry about that. Okay? You can always call and talk to us too. Person contacts us from Arizona and they say, I'm receiving Social Security disability payments and trying to seek help. I'm behind on medical bills, credit card payments, title loan payments, and I was wondering, do you help prevent a car repossession? Well, okay. Uh, Let me explain. Okay. The person getting Social Security, it's protected. Uh, they don't have to pay the medical debt. They don't have to pay the credit cards. But what about a title loan? Well, it kind of depends. A title loan is where you put up your title as security for a loan. So technically, if you don't pay the title loan payment, they could repossess your car. And they could because they have the title to it. Okay. Do they do that? They do it occasionally. Sometimes people will put up a car that's so old and not worth a whole lot, and it would cost the title loan company more to repossess the car than it would be what the car is worth. But if you don't have to pay the medical bills or the credit card payments, that might make it so that you can deal with the the loan that you owe on the title loan. Okay. Um, let me. I need to do something really quick. There we go. Okay. Are we still considered insolvent living in a, Mrs. H asks, are we still considered insolvent living in an unlimited homestead state when filing Form 982 with taxes? Well, that doesn't make any difference. It just doesn't have to do with your how much your home, the exemption you have on your home. It actually has to do with how much the home is worth or your other assets are worth versus how much your debt is. So this person says they've got cancer and they're on disability. And due to a loss of income, my husband and I are now living on limited Social Security income. Excuse me, sorry. As a result, we have debt collectors contacting us daily. I've informed the credit card companies of my medical and financial situation and sending a small monthly payment, although it's not below the required minimum. However, they are pressuring me to commit to a long-term hardship plan under their terms. At this point, I'm sure how to proceed. I am unsure how to proceed with our financial situation and seeking professional guidance or available options. We don't need a payment at all. Your only income is Social Security. You don't need to talk to the creditors. If you enroll in helps, we're going to send those credit card companies a letter, let them know you're not going to pay it. They're going to leave you alone. So that's what this person emailed us, and then looks like we tried to call them back. We left a message on December 17th, December 19th. Then we contacted them on Christmas Eve, December 24th. And they emailed us saying that, or they emailed us on December 24th saying that they're recovering from an illness and that they will call us on December 29th. Um, well, we did speak to him on New Year's Eve, December 31st. She has been seeing some of our YouTube videos and did research on our website. Their debt is outweighing their income. She has been in contact with the creditors in her name to explain their situation. It doesn't really do any good to talk to the creditor about your situation. Um, so some of them offered a payment plan, but Tina's declined. If you can't pay them and you tell them you can't pay them, they don't have an authority to waive the necessity of you paying them. All they're supposed to do is try to pressure you to make payments. Then they called us on January 7th. We tried to call them back. We tried to call them back on the 8th of January. And we talked to them on January 13th, went over helps in what we do. And we talked to the husband this time. Um, and then we talked to them on February 17th, that was 2 days ago, and they enrolled in helps. Okay, so you know, we don't have any problem with you calling us multiple times before you decide to enroll in helps. Sometimes people call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they decide to enroll. We want you to feel comfortable about what we do. So Jay Dunn says, if I have equity in my home, just $75,000, can the government or credit card companies take my home? This is my biggest fear. Okay, the government ain't going to take your home. If you owe taxes, they don't do that. Okay. Now, I suppose if you had a multi-million dollar house and you had a multi-million dollar tax debt and you were extremely wealthy, that could be an exception, but not for normal normal people. They don't. IRS or states don't go taking homes. They may file a lien, which means it might be need to pay it if you go to sell the home. And as far as the IRS are concerned, the tax is good for 10 years. After that, they can't collect on it. The question is, will a credit card company take your home? It's not every state has what's called almost every state has what's called a homestead exemption, which is the amount of equity that's protected in that state, um, either in bankruptcy or from creditors being able to take it. Okay, it usually just applies to to bankruptcy. So the question is, and some states have an unlimited homestead exemption, like Texas and Florida, South Carolina, a lot of the Midwest states, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, North and South Dakota. Uh, and some states might protect, like California protects 700,000 in equity. Oregon raised their limit to 150,000. I think Nevada's 400,000. It depends on the state. Okay, but even if you have a state that has a minimal amount that's protected automatically, I'm 75, been an attorney for 48 years. It's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors that get a judgment to try to take your home, even if you have equity in it over and above the homestead exemption. So, Jay Dunn, I don't think you need to worry. You always call and talk to helps about this. If a creditor were ever to try to do that, which they wouldn't do, there's things that can be done. And then maybe you own it jointly with a spouse and the judgment's just against you. And then if you own it jointly with a spouse, if they have a judgment, it could become a lien, but when you die, the property goes to your spouse, the judgment lien disappears. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't need to fear that, but you can call us. So Gina asked, if I have a 401k or a 403b, can creditors go after those if my Social Security, even if my Social Security income is protected? Yes, it is protected. So what a 401k and a 403b is, those are kind of like independent retirement accounts that you save money for, and the they're protected under federal law. They can't be garnished or taken from you. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it. So the whole purpose of the the major purpose of helps is so that people enroll in our program. We send a cease and desist letter out to the creditors you owe money to, so they can't bother you anymore. They can't send you demand letters or call you on the phone. They have to communicate with us. But our other purpose is so that you can always have someone to call if you're worried or scared or have a question. If you get sued, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you, let him know that your income is protected, that you can't pay the debt. We're going to call you and send you emails explaining why you don't need to go to court and why you don't need to worry. Okay? That's what we do. Person contacts us from New Jersey. Uh, I live in Lakewood, New Jersey, and am a senior. I'm recently being sued by for a dental bill. The bill is 4 years old. Uh, she wanted a copy of the bill, and the attorney sent her a copy of the bill plus an extra $2,000 tacked onto it for lawyer fees. And whether they're allowed to do that, I don't know. Maybe in New Jersey it could. But I answered the summons disputing the bill, so she disputed the bill. There's a difference between the bill and the summons. Also, my credit score dropped 100 points in one day. I ordered copies of the reports to verify reason. Also have an issue with Care Credit. A dentist bill again. And again, her credit went down. She agreed to pay him $109 a month, and she owes him $3,500. My interest consists of Social Security and some interest from bank accounts, so these bills are a burden. Please let me know if you can help. Well, okay. Your Social Security, this person's Social Security is protected, but if they have bank accounts that are not retirement accounts, that money could be at risk. And if they get a judgment, they could garnish those accounts and take the core of the money upon which he receives interest. So we'd probably tell this person, if that's not a retirement account that's in your bank, you may want to clean those accounts out and put those money in a safer place, either cash, uh, cashier's checks, preloaded debit card, have someone else hold it for you. But if it's just in a regular bank account and it's not protected funds and they get a judgment, they could be garnished from you. But if you don't want to hear, but if you person enrolls helps, they give us the lawsuits they're served with. We send a letter to the attorney, and we tell the client why they don't need to go to court, why they don't need to worry about it. Okay. Person contacts us from California. I have a debt that I am no longer able to pay, given that I have recently moved into assisted living. All of my income, Social Security, and two small pensions go to cover the cost of the facility in which I now live. I learned about your services and I need your help. This person will get our help for free. They won't have to pay anything. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. You know, uh, they're in an assisted living facility. If they're getting, maybe paying $3,000, and or if they're on Medicaid, and their all their income is going to pay towards the housing, no, they can get our help. We'll send a letter to the creditors that they owe money to. They're going to leave them alone, and we're going to tell them not to worry. They'll be our client literally ongoing. When people enroll in helps, you're a client literally for the rest of your life. I mean, uh, the cost of enroll in helps is minimal. The most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, then $20 for 24 months free thereafter, or $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months free thereafter. So the cost is minimal. And, when you enroll in help, you don't have to pay these old debts anymore. Okay. Do you know if banks offer preloaded debit cards to customers? Oh, yeah. Um, a lot of places offer preloaded debit cards. American Express has one. I think you can get it from Walmart, up to $10,000 preloaded debit card. Person contacts us. They say, am I responsible for my dead husband's hospital bill? And they say, I have a small lot side yard in his name. Well, okay. Let's talk about the hospital bill. In a lot of states, they have laws that say that um, if a family member, like a husband or wife, incurs a debt, or children, that the parent or the spouse is responsible for the other spouse's debt. There are some states that have an exception to that. Okay. But if your only income is Social Security or a pension, it doesn't matter if you're responsible or not. Even if they were to sue you and get a judgment, they can't collect from you. So for a lot of reasons, you don't need to worry about a deceased spouse debt. And there are some states that are called community property states, which means that if a debt is solely in one of the spouse's names, the other spouse is also deemed to be liable for that debt. Exception would be a business debt. But it's not the practice of credit card companies if the husband's credit card is only in his name and he doesn't pay the debt and he passed away, that even in a community property state, they're not going to go after the wife for the debt. They simply don't do that. Okay. Now they also said I have a small side lot yard in his name. What I think she's saying is that maybe she's buying a home and then there was a lot next door that's in the husband's name. Is there going to be a problem with that? It gets a little detailed on that, but if it's in his name only and not in your name, then there'd have to be some type of probate proceeding to get it in your name. And that might involve paying any debt that he owes. So there could be a problem with that side lot. But if he would have added your name to the lot during your marriage when he was alive, so that he owned it jointly with survivorship rights, then that would have meant that when he passed on, the property now, the lot would now be in your name only. There wouldn't be an issue. So if you're a spouse and married and your home is in just one spouse's name, a lot of times it would make sense that the other spouse gets their name on the property, especially if uh, the spouse in whose name it is all by themselves is older and they're going to pass away first. Um, Otherwise, it could be we have an email that we call "Protecting a Home for Children," but it also talks about protecting a home for a spouse that you can get from us that we'll give to you. Person contacts us. They're saying, I'm 63 and collecting disability compensation. Disability is not even considered income, right? It's also protected from debt collectors, right? Well, okay. Well, it is income in a way, but it's protected. Social Security disability is a form of disability, but even if it's private disability, your state will have a statute that protects that from a creditor taking it from you. It wouldn't do any good for them to give you disability income and then allow creditors to take it from you. Disability income is designed so you have some money to survive, and if they let the creditors take it from you, it defeats the purpose. If they were able to take it from you, you'd have to go to the state for help. The state doesn't want that. They want you to be able to live on your own. Therefore, they're going to protect that disability income from you. It's going to be protected from creditors. If I don't answer your questions here on YouTube Live, call us on the phone. We got paralegals standing by. Numbers right down there, 855-435-7787. We want to be able to answer your questions. We don't want you to worry. I think people that call us and enroll in helps are generally very happy that they did. Okay? Person contacts us from Alabama. Said, I'm being sued in small claims court for $1,468. My only income is Social Security. I've repeatedly told the debt collector, LVNB funding, that this is my only income. And I also take care of my adult disabled son. Please, if you can help me, thank you so much. And we'll be able to help this person. So the question is, if you tell the debt collector, my only income is Social Security, why would they sue you in small claims court? Well, okay. A lot of this is handled by artificial intelligence. They just it's easy for them to file a lawsuit. They pay a little bit of a fee, file a lawsuit, and they have statistics that show them if they file a lawsuit, maybe their collection rate goes up. And they count on a senior not understanding the law, not realizing that their income is protected and they don't have to pay the debt. Or they count on getting a judgment and then filing some other papers and scaring a senior into thinking that they have to pay the debt when they don't. So if you're in that position, if you're scared about a threat of a lawsuit or if you've been sued, you're going to be fine. Give us a call and talk to us. We'll go over this with you. Explain why you're going to be okay. We don't want you to worry. So I think I've said 3 times already, I'm 75. Okay. Let me see. 26. Like 14 years ago, I was the lead partner in a very large consumer bankruptcy firm that's still in existence. And for many years, seniors would come to me and I would, for bankruptcy, and I would tell them, hey, you don't really need to file bankruptcy. Your income is protected. No one can touch it. And a lot of times, even if they wanted to file bankruptcy, they couldn't afford to. Too expensive. The cost of bankruptcy now, you might be able to get it done for less than $2,000, but a lot of times it's $2,000 or $3,000. And a lot of times bankruptcy can get you in a mess too. You can file the wrong type of bankruptcy. So in 2012, the idea for HELPS came to be is that we could represent seniors under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which is a law that says if a person's represented by an attorney, collectors can no longer call or send them demand letters anymore. And that we would represent the seniors ongoing, literally forever, so they wouldn't have to deal with collectors. So we have clients that have been with HELP since 2012. When we first started, we might have 10 people a month enroll in HELPS. Now it's in the hundreds. And someday it'll be in the thousands because a lot of people need this help, don't realize it's available. Happy birthday, Janie. So when the person says, please, if you can help me, yes, we can. That's what we do. Don't hesitate to call. Please don't hesitate to call. Person contacts us from Texas and they say, I currently get Social Security and a pension from Texas Retirement System. I got a letter from an attorney wanting me to help with my lawsuit from portfolio recovery for Citibank that they had been assigned. Since I didn't know I'd been sued, I looked up my county records and found it. Even though I've not formally been served. I immediately panicked and called National Debt Relief. That's a debt settlement or debt management company. To help me with my other credit card debt. They said they could not deal with the suit, but I could go through their program to pay off the other credit cards. I haven't signed up with them yet as I am checking out my options. Ugh. So, okay, let me go. There's more, but let me talk up to now. They get Social Security and a pension. It's protected. No one can take it. As far as the lawsuit from portfolio recoveries, if they get a judgment, twice the amount of their federal benefit, retire their Social Security, that amount is protected, even if it includes money from their retirement account, their Texas retirement account. Why did they get a letter from an attorney? Because there's bankruptcy attorneys that subscribe to a service to let them know if someone's been sued, and they'll send a letter to you saying, hey, you've been sued, contact us, we can file bankruptcy. And so you know what to do? She calls National Debt Relief. There are scores of companies like National Debt Relief that some of them are nonprofit, some of them are for-profit. But with rare exception, they won't tell a senior this fact, that their pension and their Social Security is protected. It's protected in their bank account, and they don't need to worry about a lawsuit, and they don't need their help. But if they would have told them that your income was protected, you wouldn't enroll with them, and they want to collect money from you. And a lot of these companies, nearly a third of their clients are seniors. So in essentially, they're scammers for that by not giving seniors complete information. And if you're signed up with one of these companies, making debt payments on your debt, and now you're learning for the first time you don't have to, yeah, you've been scammed because they haven't given you the complete truth. It's fraud. One element of fraud is not telling someone something that's in their financial interest because it's in your financial interest. And that's what these companies do. They don't tell you what's in your financial interest, the fact that your income is protected, because they're looking out for themselves, the fee they would get if you enrolled with them. So then the person goes on to say, they haven't signed up with them yet. They say, I then saw a video where I could file a motion to dismiss for lack of standing due to no chain of title since my original debt was the Citibank and not them. That's not going to get you anywhere. And there's a lot of videos out there that people have given advice about, do this thing or do that thing. Don't need to worry about it. Since I truly owe the debt, I felt that it wasn't right. You're right, it wasn't right. Even you could, in other words, a creditor can sell a debt or assign a debt to someone to collect on their behalf. After you're watching your videos on seniorliving.org, they put thank you in big letters. We do a lot of videos with senior living. Some of them get nearly 1 million views. I want to know if I should just first wait to be served and proceed with the default judgment or try to respond. Finally, how to become a client? Any help you give me? You don't need to respond. I mean, if you tried to respond now before you were served with the summons, they wouldn't know what to do. And, you know, if your income, Social Security, and Texas retirement, and you owe the money, like they say, you don't need to respond. Okay, if you're served with a summons and a complaint, it tells you that you can respond, but normally that's if you want to contest the lawsuit that you don't owe it. But if you don't owe it, if you respond, it's just going to go through the system, go to trial, and you're going to lose the case. So you don't need to really respond if you don't want to. And how do I become a client? Well, pretty easy. So they ask, well, if I get a default judgment, no big deal. Your income is protected, life I explained in your bank account. How do I become a client? Well, you simply call us on the phone. We enroll you over the phone. You can call 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Look at our website. Look at our YouTube videos. And then when you enroll, we enroll you over the phone. The payment won't begin until 30 or 60 days down the line. You don't need any money up front. And we push a button and you get sent an email that says welcome to help. So you're enrolled immediately. So that when we hang up the phone after you enroll, the creditor will call you, tell them I'm represented by Helps Law Firm, you give them our name and number, and you hang up the phone. Any help you can give me is greatly appreciated. We want you to call so we can help you. That's the name of the law. Helps. What does it stand for? Help eliminate legal problems for seniors. Helps. So this person named Paul contacts us. I actually didn't contact us. This is a comment on one of our videos, or it could have been a video from Senior Living. Let me take a wild guess, he says. At this, there's a law in place, but they're not abided by. What happens when these laws are broken and they take a garnishment out against your wages? Then who do you can contact? So let's say you are working, okay, and someone sued you and got a judgment. And I've explained how in every state a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wages is protected from garnishment. Some states don't allow garnishment, okay, like Texas. Other states protect larger amounts than $217.50 net per week, the garnishment is served on your payroll clerk. And payroll clerks are pretty good. They're educated. Part of their education as being a payroll clerk is to understand what to do with a writ of garnishment. And so they know when your money is protected, and it would be highly unusual for them to take money out of your wages when they're not allowed to do so. And if you suspect that they've done so, contact helps. We would look at it. We'd go over it with you, and if necessary, we'd reach out to if you're a member of helps, we'll reach out to your payroll clerk and get them on board so they get it right. Person contacts us from Florida. They say, I have an RV that I can't afford to pay any longer, and I'm trying to sell it. I'm told I will need $40,000 to $50,000 to pay off the loan after the buyer pays. Well, that could be depressing, but you don't need to worry. I'll explain why. So let's say you got an RV, and you bought a real nice one. Let's say you paid $100,000 for it. You've been paying for a couple of years. Now all of a sudden your spouse gets sick. They can no longer drive it. You can't use it anymore. Maybe the spouse passes away, and now part of your income goes away, and you're saddled with this RV that maybe you owe. Let's say you owe $80,000 on it. But if it gets repossessed, you stop making the payment and it gets repossessed, it's only going to sell for maybe $40,000 or $30,000, and you may end up owing $40,000 on it. The difference, it's called a deficiency, and that's fine. If that happens, and your income is Social Security or a pension or protected income, like I've explained, when that person enrolls in helps and they can't afford the RV anymore, we tell them let it go back. Stop making the payment. You wait till you're behind on the payment and they call you and you tell them you can't afford it. You don't need to give them a reason. You can if you want, and they'll eventually pick it up. And then they're going to they're going to sell it at auction, and invariably they're going to sell it for less than what you owe. Now, if you happen to have equity in it, you could sell it yourself so that you could come out with some money, but that doesn't happen very rarely. So they're going to sell it, and then you're going to get a letter, what's called a notice of deficiency, telling you how much you owe. And if you're a member of helps, you get us that notice of deficiency. We're going to send a letter to the lender, to whom you owe money on the RV, the balance. Let them know that you can't afford to pay it. And we'll also tell you, of course, that your income's protected. You don't need to worry. If they were to sue you, and I'll tell you right now, it's not all that often that a lender on an RV would sue you for a deficiency. Now, maybe a credit union might, but once again, you don't need to worry if they do, because your Social Security is protected, so is your pension. They can't take the money from you. And it's protected in your bank account, as I've explained. Now, some of this stuff you don't understand, start at the beginning of this video and listen to it. I've explained it earlier. Or look at our other YouTube videos. Or look at our webpage. Or call us on the phone to go over your situation. We don't want you to worry if you're saddled with an RV. Same thing if you've got a timeshare. You don't need to pay the timeshare. You can let it go back, stop making the payment. Now, you may have a car that you owe a whole lot of money on it now. You just simply can't afford it. You can let it go back. You don't need to worry about the debt that you're going to owe. Okay? I had a collector call me trying to collect a debt that my ex-wife made. I told him it's not my problem. I gave him her direct number. End of story. Well, you could do that. You didn't necessarily need to give him her number, but that's okay. But no, they're not going to have to pay the debt. Now remember, a debt collector is just in the business to try to collect debt. So they're going to tell you whatever they think they can need to tell you to get you to pay the debt. But you don't need to talk to them. Okay? Now, if you're a member of helps, you'd refer them to us, but hopefully you would have given us their name and address so they wouldn't be calling you in the first place. Yeah, we don't want them to bother you. Okay. So we're at the end. We got a couple of minutes to go. I'm just going to talk about something different for a minute, just for the fun of it. Those that listen to me regularly know that I'm presently in New Orleans. Be here for another little bit more than a year, and probably after that for quite a while. And I just finished up Mardi Gras on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. I've never in my entire life seen anything like Mardi Gras. It was absolutely, totally unbelievable. Okay. They have parades all over the city and all over the towns, outlying towns. And these big parades will come down the street with pulling floats 2 stories high, and people have junk in there, goods junk, and they throw it at people. Throw it, beads, but not only beads. They throw anything. Some place they were throwing shoes. Some places throwing bras, brassieres. Can you believe it? A lot of them would throw. I can't remember that stuffed animals, stuffed toys. Some places they'd hand a TV to someone, a brand new TV. It was crazy, and all these different organizations run these parades, and they go down the street, and the street would be lined with people. Some would be really thick, and the people just waving their hand, "Give me something, mister, give me something." Really kind of a sweet tradition that's been in effect since, I don't know, I think first started in 1700s. And they're manned by what's called crews, this organizations, and some of these organizations have been around for 150 years, and they did different routes, one right after another. So anyway, I just experienced that. I thought I'd share that with you. I never thought I'd come to love New Orleans, but I do. It's an amazing city. The entire city is under sea level except for a few places, surrounded by levees that protect us from the water. And the streets are bumpy, but that's okay. There's a lot of beautiful streets. It has 2 freeways that go for town. It's a town with millions of people in it, but you can get from one edge of the town to the next in about 10 minutes on these freeways that are elevated. It's almost like the Jetsons. Remember the old cartoon in the future where you have these monorails that go where the streets are like that. They're elevated. You get on one of these freeways and boom, you can zoom. There's speed limits, but no one follows the speed limit. People are going 85 miles an hour, and I talk to the cops all the time because I work in an area where I talk with them, and I ask them, why don't I ever see anyone being pulled over for speeding? He says, we don't have time to pull anyone for speeding. We're too busy with other things. And then every other billboard almost is an advertisement for a personal injury attorney. So I notice people are very courteous drivers in New Orleans. They may go fast, but man, they let you in, and stoplights, they'll let you in, they'll do this and that. I think it's because there's so many billboards advertising personal injury attorneys that no one wants to get in a wreck and get sued. And so they do everything they can to be very careful. So that's my little extra bit today. We're done on Thursday. I'll be with you again on Monday, regular time. If you're new, thank you for participating. Call us if you have any questions. I don't want you to worry. And I don't want you to be scared. And you can look at all our other videos. Check out our reviews. And God bless, and I'll talk to you Monday. Bye.